We're halfway through the week. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's program. Korea's finance minister and the Bank of Korea governor met today to address issues faced by the country's financial market amid heightened tension between North Korea and the U.S. Fears over pesticide-contaminated eggs here in Korea are spreading, and the government has banned egg shipments from farms with more than 3,000 chickens. These stories and more coming right up. South Korea's top economic policymakers sat down today to address the most pressing issues affecting the local economy. The biggest one being market concerns over a possible military conflict between the U.S. and North Korea. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon and Bank of Korea Governor Lee Joo met on Wednesday to discuss how to stabilize the country's financial market amid the rise in geopolitical tensions following the North's recent missile launches and its threat to attack the U.S. territory of Guam.
It appears that the markets are calming down, but depending on the continued missile threats from North Korea, we could see another shakeup.
Korea's finance chief said the government and the Bank of Korea will continue to work together to closely monitor market developments and coordinate contingency measures if necessary. During the meeting, the policymakers also exchanged views on the government's key economic initiatives aimed at boosting income-led growth and job creation.
We discussed a variety of issues, how economic policies will be implemented in the latter half of the year, and especially with next year's budget plan in the process of being finalized, how this would be executed, as well as the government's tax expenditure reform.
With the government set to finalize next year's budget plans later this month, Governor Lee emphasized the role of finances in addressing socio-economic problems prior to the meeting. Regarding budgetary concerns, Minister Kim assured that the expansion of social welfare schemes such as basic income support and healthcare coverage would be backed by sufficient financial reserves through a natural rise in tax revenue. Kim also added the government is already making efforts to reduce some $9.7 billion in state expenditures. Remarking on healthy export growth and fair domestic conditions that have been seen in recent months, the policymakers agreed to work together to maintain growth momentum and market soundness by coordinating fiscal and monetary policies. Oh Soo-young, Business Daily.
The premium for South Korea's credit default swaps, or CDS, has hit an 18-month high on worries stemming from North Korea. According to the Korea Center for International Finance, South Korea's 5-year CDS premium recorded 70 basis points on Monday, the highest level since February of last year. Now, it's also higher than China's CDS premium of 68 basis points recorded on the same day. Amid escalating tensions between the U.S. and North Korea, South Korea's 5-year CDS premium has jumped by over 10 basis points in the past week as investors see the country's sovereign notes as a riskier bet. A top U.S. business official says American firms believe the South Korea-U.S. free trade agreement is working well. This is according to Tommy Overby, Senior Vice President for Asia at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, in an interview with the local Yonhap news agency on Wednesday. Overby said the lobbying group, which represents more than 3 million U.S. businesses, believes the FTA is well balanced and does not need to be renegotiated. In regards to U.S. President Donald Trump's claim that the FTA is responsible for Washington's trade deficit with Seoul, Overby said the losses would have been significantly higher without the deal. She added the trade deficit does not account for the services industry nor South Korea's direct investment in the U.S., which helps create American jobs. For a brief look at today's stock market action, we have our markets contributor, Jemmy Kim, joining us on the line. Hello, Jemmy.
Hello.
Can you give us a rundown of how the Korean equity markets performed today?
Yeah, sure. The Kospi rebounded after spiraling downwards last week on concerns of a military showdown between North Korea and the United States. The main Kospi index opened higher and it closed up 0.6% at 2348.26 points, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq ended 5.5% higher at 634.91 points. Anxiety has been building in and around the peninsula about how the U.S. would deal with Pyongyang, but investors seem to have regained confidence after China stepped in. and after the U.S. president said he would solve things in a peaceful manner. Positive economic data from the U.S. also boosted market sentiment, and retail sales rose 0.6% in July, more than the expected increase of 0.4%, while import prices rebounded after 2 straight months of declines.
All right, then, could you break down the market action for us?
Sure. Some of the market heavyweights, which had been on a declining trend last week, recovered their pace to give the index a leg up. This was mainly as foreigners turned into net buyers. Samsung Electronics, the number one market cap, was up 2.67%, and in general, IT and electronics were up. SK Hynix was up 1.54%, while Korea Electric Power Corporation was also up 1.03%. Others, however, such as POSCO, were down by 2%, while Hyundai Motor remained unchanged.
Then what market events do we have in store for this week that may further affect movements?
Well, there isn't much happening at home, but in the U.S. there are some figures to watch for. Later today, the FOMC minutes for July will be disclosed, while tomorrow industrial output for July in the U.S. is due, and on Friday, the August Consumer Confidence Survey by the University of Michigan will come out. In the meantime, both policymakers and investors will be on the lookout for more signs of geopolitical stability or the lack thereof on the peninsula, as they would have significant impact on the markets. This has been Jemmy Kim for Business Daily.
Korea is on alert after the discovery of eggs contaminated with pesticide that could pose a threat to human health. The government says it will recall and dispose all tainted eggs after the preliminary results of its probe into the case. Now, with the number of eggs available at store shelves dropping to 1/4 of the usual levels, the government is hoping to normalize egg distribution by Friday. Our Park Hee-jun has the story.
The government revealed the primary results of an investigation into the pesticide-contaminated eggs crisis. Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has announced that 245 out of 1,239 egg farms have been investigated, and among those, 4 have been found to have problems with pesticides. 2 farms have been found to have used potentially harmful pesticides, while another 2 used excessive amounts of pesticides that are allowed in small quantities. The government will complete its investigation by Friday and start distributing eggs that are safe for consumption after disposing all contaminated eggs.
It's easy to check the production and distribution of eggs, so this issue will be easier to solve than the AI. We believe this will be solved within a couple of days.
This comes amid growing concerns related to fipronil, a potentially harmful pesticide that was detected in eggs from a farm in Namyangju, which produces 25,000 eggs a day. Fipronil is a white powder-based insecticide that is often used to treat cats and dogs for lice, fleas, and ticks, but its use on chickens is forbidden. According to the World Health Organization, it can be hazardous when ingested in large quantities. In addition to muscle cramps, fipronil can possibly lead to headaches, organ damage, and paresthesia, which has symptoms such as numbness and pins and needles. The Ministry of Agriculture has banned the production of eggs on farms with more than 3,000 hens on Tuesday, and at the same time, all major retail stores have also stopped selling eggs, an unprecedented case in Korea. As of 3 p.m. Korea time, eggs from Namyangju, Gwangju, and Yangju of Gyeonggi-do Province, Cheoron of Gangwon-do Province, and Naju of Jeollanam-do Province have been found to contain harmful amounts of pesticide. Eggs of Namyangju and Cheoron contain fipronil, while eggs of Yangju, Gwangju, and Naju contain bifenthrin. Traces of fipronil was also found in Sunchang of Jeollabuk-do Province, although in amounts not exceeding health limits. Consumers are advised to avoid eggs that originate from the farms that were found to have problems with pesticides. These eggs are labeled 09 Jihyun, 08 Shinseon 2, 08 LSH, and 08 Mari. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
And the decision to collect and dispose the tainted eggs came during a meeting of the ruling party government and Blue House officials on Wednesday. On top of the egg scare, the 3 sides also discussed a wide range of pending issues, including bolstering support for small businesses. They agreed to set up a fund to reduce the burden on SMEs ahead of a hike in minimum wages set for next year. The ruling party has also vowed to strengthen welfare support by providing child care benefits of some $87 a month to parents with children under the age of 5, starting in July of next year. The basic pension for senior citizens will also be raised to roughly $220 a month beginning next April. The verdict of Korea's biggest class action wage lawsuit will be handed down this Thursday against Kia Motors on whether it has to compensate its workers for unpaid bonuses and overtime pay. The multi-billion-dollar lawsuit could have a big impact not only on Kia, but on other companies facing similar wage-related lawsuits. For more on this, our Kim Ji-yeon joins us in the studio today. Hi, Ji-yeon.
Hello, Ji-yeon.
All right, so tell us more about how this case was first brought about.
Sure. The lawsuit was first filed in 2011. It was brought by some 27,000 labor union members who sued Kia Motors, a corporate cousin of Korea's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor, for withholding overtime pay and bonuses. The focus of the case is on whether or not bonuses should be included in workers' regular wages, an important factor that also determines their severance pay. If Kia Motors loses the court battle, it may cost the firm up to $2.7 billion in wage compensation, and some are expecting a landmark ruling that would empower labor rights under Korea's family-run conglomerates known as the chaebol. Others, however, argue a ruling in favor of the union would hamstring the already sluggish local auto industry and thus the overall economy.
So how have the two sides argued, and also what's the likely outcome of tomorrow's trial?
Well, for starters, the court's ruling is expected to clarify the definition and scope of what constitutes ordinary wages, and it is going to specify the terms laid out in a 2013 ruling. Take a look.
Korea's Supreme Court provided a criteria on instances where bonuses, allowances, and other welfare benefits should be regarded as ordinary wages. When such benefits are provided on a regular, uniform, and fixed basis, the court has said they should be included as part of ordinary wages. It was traditionally regarded that bonuses that have not been paid within a month were not considered as ordinary wages. The latest ruling, however, expands the scope of what defines regular pay, and that these bonuses could be regarded as such on a case-by-case basis. So for the union, the plaintiff in this case, they've argued that their case has passed three criteria of ordinary wages, while the defendant, Kia Motors, has claimed the opposite. The company has also argued against a wage compensation package, which they say could severely affect their business, and have requested the court to not bind it to pay 3 years worth of damages. Since it's the first trial, if any side appeals to this week's ruling, uncertainties regarding unpaid wages are likely to drag on for a more couple of years. During that time, annual labor strikes, now considered a regular ritual, is likely to continue incurring damages to both sides. It's hard to find foreign precedents because this case derives from Korea's unique wage system, where bonuses and overtime pay are divided into 10 different categories and are distinguished from ordinary wage. It also stems from the different operational structure when it comes to the local auto industry, and that their plants may have to operate around the clock to meet orders, oftentimes requiring rotational shifts and no off days on weekends and national holidays.
Also, the case snowballed due to the gap on the scope of ordinary wages between local courts and that of the government. The courts have applied a wider application of ordinary wages compared to the Labor Ministry during the previous administration, which tried to make it more business-friendly for automakers.
So whichever side wins this week, it's obviously going to have a big impact with stakes being so high. So how would the country's auto industry be affected by tomorrow's decision?
Well, before we go to the effect, legal experts are eyeing this case since it's going to serve as a precedent case in other similar cases. According to the Federation of Korean Industries, 86 similar lawsuits regarding unpaid wages were pending in local courts as of June 2016, including those brought by laborers from other lawmakers. So if Kia Motors loses this case, the Korean branch of US-based General Motors Company may face a similar fate, something that would highly discourage automakers operating in Korea. The country's auto exports have already plunged 33% during the first 5 months of 2017 compared to the same period last year.
Korea's auto exports to emerging markets, which make up more than half of its total auto exports, have waned, largely to low international oil prices. Also playing a part are sluggish exports to China, which is retailing against Korea's THAAD deployment, and to the U.S., where consumers favor models Korean automakers don't focus on.
And supporters of Kia argues that the amount in damages is larger than the company's total profits from last year, and that the verdict will have a considerable impact, forcing the lawmaker to reevaluate its business practices.
All right, I guess for now we'll keep our eyes on what comes out of tomorrow's court ruling. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Korea is notorious for its grueling working hours, and a new report shows that its reputation is well-deserved. According to the 2017 OECD Employment Outlook, Korea ranked second highest in the OECD when it comes to annual working hours per person. It shows the average Korean worked 2,070 hours in 2016, which is 305 hours more than the OECD average. That's 38 additional days of labor, assuming there are 8 hours in one workday. But despite the long working hours, Koreans earned real wages below the OECD average. Last year, a single employee was paid an average of some $32,000, just 3/4 of the OECD average. Despite government assurances the latest real estate measures will only have a limited impact on the greater economy, there are those who say the stricter rules could slow the country's recovery momentum. Our Eunice Kim tells us more.
With tax investigations overlapping the so-called August 2nd real estate measures, inquiries for property purchases look to be ebbing.
If we used to get 30 calls from buyers a day, now we're seeing less than 10.
Some experts are warning if the current wait-and-see mode leads to a cool-down in the real estate market, it has the weight to curb the country's recovery momentum. They say not only will there be a drop in consumer sentiment, but construction orders will dry up as investment hits a downturn.
With investor homeowners stepping away, we could see a slowdown in housing supply in the mid to long term. This could have a negative impact on the construction industry as a whole.
But the government has maintained its 3% growth outlook for 2017, arguing the immediate impact will be limited. It said this year's performance will be a reflection of housing supply created 2 to 3 years earlier, that there is still room for investment, and that other key indicators, exports and consumption, have been on the up. Even if the effects aren't immediate, experts warn there must be policies in place to offset falling private spending and construction investment in the medium to long term.
Consumption and vitality will fall. We'll need efforts to reduce policy uncertainty in order to improve corporate investment.
In light of lingering risk variables in the second half, including North Korea provocations and a possible FOMC rate rise, they suggest an early adoption of the supplementary budget to help offset the burdens also stemming from the government's nuclear energy posture and higher minimum wage. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
The price of Bitcoin hit another record high on Tuesday amid the cryptocurrency's growing popularity. According to industry sources, CoinDesk, it was worth $4,483 as of Tuesday for a total market cap of $73.5 billion. CoinDesk says if Bitcoin was a publicly traded stock, it would be the 74th most valuable firm on Wall Street, closely behind Netflix on the S&P 500. Market watchers say institutional investors in Japan mainly drove the rally. The geopolitical tension between the U.S. and North Korea also contributed to the gains, with Bitcoin being treated as a safe haven asset by many global investors. On the back of its hot streak, Kakao Bank has emerged as the country's top lender so far in the month of August, accounting for a quarter of all new household loans. Data released by the Financial Supervisory Service on Thursday showed a breakdown of new credit extended over the first 11 days of August. The internet-only bank had approved more than $473 million worth of new loans, the most among the country's 19 banks. Coming in second was Shinhan Bank with nearly $351 million in new loans, trailed by KB Kookmin Bank and KEB Hana Bank. Meanwhile, K-Bank, Korea's first internet-only bank, had issued just $2.6 million in fresh loans over the same period. So with Korea's internet-only banks shaking up the local financial market, the government is reviewing the possibility of approving a third internet-only bank in the near future. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
Korea's two online-only banks are surprising many with their unforeseen performances. For one, K-Bank, which launched this April, saw roughly $604 million in deposits over a 3-month period, while lending out some $552 million. Kakao Bank brandished an even more impressive performance, racking up about $872 million while giving out some $675 million in loans in just 2 weeks since its launch. Exhibiting stronger than expected results, K-Bank decided to increase its capital by $87 million and Kakao Bank to expand by about $437 million to stabilize their businesses and minimize risks. In response to this explosive demand, the government said it's reviewing the possibility of granting a license to a third online-only bank. While the specific time and methods have not yet been decided, 1 or possibly 2 more online banks are projected to be added by the end of President Moon Jae-in's term in office. Chairman Choi Jong-gu of the Financial Services Commission had also stated that a third player is necessary in order to promote competition and innovation among the internet-only banks. Eligible candidates include the iBank consortium led by Interpark, which was initially rejected due to its lack of stability in the loan business. The 500V consortium, along with other financial entities that do not have a stake in the existing internet banks, are also on the list. Experts, however, point out that if more banks are to be added, side effects due to market saturation need to be carefully taken into consideration and put measures in place to effectively manage potential risks. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Employee welfare and productivity are key for companies in search of long-term success. And a break from the past, more and more Korean firms are now encouraging workers to take additional time off in hopes that the extra downtime will result in more productive labor. Our Elliot Kim with more.
After 5 years of working, Kong Ra-yeon is set to leave on a 10-day summer vacation with her friends. 6 years ago, her company instituted a 2-week vacation program.
Taking enough time off can relieve stress and fatigue from work, resulting in better concentration and mood when you return.
In recent times, more and more companies are introducing long-term vacation plans in an effort to improve corporate health and culture. Giving employees a chance to step away and recharge is seen as an effective strategy to increase creativity and productivity upon their return. Starting this year, SK introduced a system to allow vacations of up to 3 weeks, on top of their existing monthly and yearly leave. Employees at Samsung Electronics can take a year-long break, while CJ employees have 6-month-long leaves available when combined with work training.
There's a growing awareness that employees need to rest for productivity and competitiveness to be high.
Corporate long-term leave systems have started to spill over into medium-sized companies and venture firms as well. Unfortunately, these companies struggle to offer the same benefits as their larger brethren. With less overall manpower, each employee at smaller companies bears more responsibility and cannot be absent for an extended period of time. A poll of employees aged 19 to 59 confirmed this, as 17% of public sector employees and 16% of those at large corporations took extended vacations, compared to only 3% of workers in small businesses. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.